Corporate Joe Manchin and Susan Collins, who's widely viewed as the most liberal Republican in the Senate, which is like saying you're the tallest kid in kindergarten or something, because that doesn't mean anything. Like, oh, you don't want to ruin the world tomorrow. You want to wait till next Thursday to do it. Like, oh, yes, good for you. So Corporate Joe Manchin and Susan Collins went on Morning Joe to talk about how wonderfully centrist they are. And they joined the saddest group in America. Let's watch this love fest.
And with that in mind, joining us now from Capitol Hill, newly announced co-chairs of the bipartisan group No Labels, Republican Senator Susan Collins of Maine and Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. Let's start right there. No Labels. I know the organization. Why did you two decide to take over? I like it.
Well, first of all, we're the most centrist, and we work together the most. And when I have a go-to person to go to, it's right here, Susan Collins. And you know, we've got to get along, show civility, and show that we can work together and function together. There's those of us who still desire to find the moderate middle that we can make things happen. That's where it happens, and that's where it always has happened. And if we're going to fix things, that's where we got to be.
There's so much hyper-partisanship in Washington right now, which reflects all the deep divides in our country. Too often the debate in Washington has been controlled by ideologically driven groups on the far left and the far right. What No Labels is trying to do, and we're happy to join as honorary co-chairs, is to bring people together and energize the middle. What I've said that we need are fanatical moderates to start speaking out and being as energetic and involved as those on the far left and the far right.
So, Senator Manchin, it's Willie Geist. Good to see you, and you too,
Hey, Willie, how you doing?
Senator Collins. I'm well, thank you. So that, you know, there are people who look at No Labels and have looked at it in the past, and will look at this as kind of the squishy middle of American politics, you know, trying to have kumbaya moments on Capitol Hill. And there are people who proudly wear their labels as conservative or as progressive, Democrat, sure, Republican. How do you bring those groups together in a practical way? What's the first thing you believe you actually can accomplish together?
Well, let me just say this about No Labels. Since I arrived in November 2010, it was the only organization I saw trying to find the middle, trying to bring people from both sides together. And I've been a fan, I've been involved for all these many years. And for me to be able to step up with Susan now and show that we're bringing people in from the high echelon of corporations, corporate leaders, to the rank and file on the streets, and listen, can't you just get along? We like to see you work together. We're in trouble out here. We like to do a little bit better for ourselves and our family. So I think what they're saying is they're not getting anything accomplished from the far right and far left. It just doesn't happen. These are, respectfully, I respect their positions. I like to listen to them, and then basically find how do you move forward.
Every word of that was complete and utter garbage. Every word of it. You don't get anything accomplished from the far left and the far right. It's just, you don't get anything accomplished from there. That's the only place you get things accomplished. What the fuck do you think it was when women got the right to vote? That would be a far left radical idea. What do you think it was when we got the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act? That would be a far left victory. What do you think it was when we got the Iraq War? That'd be the far right winning. The only thing that happens in the so-called center when you get bipartisan support for something is like naming post offices and cutting taxes for rich people and corporations. That's it. That's it. So notice here, what they're doing here is they're obsessed with labels, man. This is the lowest form of conversation that's out there when it comes to politics. There are ideologically driven people on the far left and the far right, and we want fanatical moderates. And we think No Labels is the way to go because you got to find the middle. So you, in that little, paragraph I just gave you there, I said nothing. I didn't say anything because you're not telling me what you're for. What are you for? You want to talk to somebody on the so-called far left? They'll tell you, I want to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. I want free college. I want Medicare for all. I want to end the wars. I want to legalize drugs. You know, they'll tell you exactly what they're for. I want to close Guantanamo Bay. I want to end warrantless spying. I want a New Deal. I want legislation to move us towards green technology and away from fossil fuels. They'll tell you exactly what they're for. Even people on the far right will tell you exactly what they're for. Go talk to them. You know? If you go to the identitarians on the right, they'll say, I want like a white ethno-state, so deport all the fucking brown people. Or if they're neocon far right, they'll tell you, I want to start wars fucking everywhere. I want to go to Iran next and then North Korea. The so-called fucking centrist, what does that mean? It means, again, they're not saying we're in the center of the actual left and right. What they're saying is we are in the center of the U.S. political spectrum. Now, and it's not just the U.S. political spectrum. It is the establishment U.S. political spectrum. So in other words, Susan Collins and Joe Manchin are so reasonable that they're between the Democratic and Republican parties. But I got bad news for you. In modern-day America, the Democratic Party is what used to be a moderate Republican. It's the Democratic Party that's for cap and trade. That was an old Republican position. It's the Democratic Party that's for Obamacare. Well, that individual mandate system is an old Republican position. That's what Nixon's idea was. Mitt Romney's idea was. Newt Gingrich, Chuck Grassley, the Heritage Foundation. You know, you go down the list, the things that the current-day Democrats believe, they're old-school Republican ideas. Obama tried to cut Medicare and Social Security. So when you say, we're so reasonable, we're no labels, we're centrist, we're in the middle of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, what you're really saying is, we're in the middle of the fucking new fascists on the right, the total and complete Christian fundamentalist corporate sellouts on the far right, and the old-school Republicans. So if the Democratic Party is center-right and the Republican Party is far-right, where are you on that spectrum? You're right-wing. You're between center-right and far-right, so you're just right-wing, which is why both of you are in favor of corporate tax cuts, both of you are in favor of cutting taxes for the rich. You know, you're in favor of deregulating, in the case of Joe Manchin, coal industry, energy industry, so they pollute the water. By the way, Paula Jean Swearingen, she needs to beat Joe Manchin in this primary. She needs to beat him. JusticeDemocrats.com/fight. Donate to her and make it happen. Because she is in favor of Medicare for all and free college and keeping the water clean in West Virginia. Joe Manchin is not. So they're not saying anything. They're saying, hey, look, we're centrist. We have no labels. We're moderates. We stand for nothing and don't really want to improve shit. But we can agree with the Republicans and the Democrats on just like cutting corporate taxes and stuff. Wow. Oh, yes. You're so brave. You're so brave. And then the best part is corporate media loves these people. Because, again, the whole premise in the mind of corporate media is that the Democratic Party represents the far left. The Republican Party represents the far right. That's what corporate media thinks. In other words, actual ideologies, they don't know anything about that. Do you think Mika Brzezinski knows what an actual left-winger stands for and what an actual right-winger stands for? No. In her mind, it's just Democrat, Republican. That's the far left and the far right. So if somebody's in the middle, oh, it's just so reasonable. It's just an assumption that if you say, I'm in the middle, you are by definition reasonable. And Joe Manchin says at the end, we need to get... what we're doing with no labels is we're bringing together corporate leaders with rank-and-file people. Joe, their things are not... The things that they want are diametrically opposed. That's like saying, we're bringing together the fox and the hen. We're going to have them together in the same room. I wonder what's going to happen. That's what you're in favor of, Joe. That's what you're in favor of. Because guess what? The corporate leader, they want to cut their taxes. They want to deregulate. They don't want unions. They don't want to raise the minimum wage. The average Joe, rank-and-file person, wants to raise the minimum wage, wants stronger unionization, wants Medicare for all, wants to raise taxes on the rich and raise corporate taxes. So you cannot bring them together. See what they do, man? Oh, it's such bullshit. It's the kind of shit that you'd hear from somebody like at the Thanksgiving dinner table in your family who doesn't follow politics at all, but they want to give their opinion because they like the sound of their own voice. And so they act like, well, I think the Democrats and Republicans just get along in Congress. That's what I think. Yeah, they should work together and stuff. That's what I think. Wouldn't it be great if there was like centrists or something? Like in between the two parties? Yeah. That's what it's like, somebody who doesn't know anything trying to be wise. That's what they sound like. Centrist, no labels, moderate. Yeah, that's what I am. Anyway, let's cut more corporate taxes. Can we do that now, please?